I'm Robert Nerdy.
And I'm Jason Pacheco.
And we're your hosts for Road to Real Estate, a podcast about real estate, small business, and the independent spirit.
Today we got Mike Sweeney with Home Inspector here in Rhode Island. He's actually our sponsor, so thank you for sponsoring our podcast. So we're going to get right into it today, really. Home inspections are really kind of one of the biggest obstacles to get through in a home inspection. It's really educational for the buyer, and it's an obstacle for the seller. So when you're a buyer, whether you're a first-time home buyer, any buyer buying residential real estate, I guess the biggest question is, let's start at the first showing. What are some easy things buyers can look out for that are just really important to kind of know?
Yeah, I think one of the big questions that we always get, first question I ask a buyer when I pull up to a home is any initial questions, concerns that you have for me. And most of the time it's the big things like the roof, the age of the heating system, stuff like that, it's their biggest concern. And I feel when you have an experienced agent and realtor and everything working with a buyer, you can sense the difference. Like as you guys went through the property prior to the inspection, okay, the house was built 100 years ago. Some things are going to be older. That's just the way the property is, They didn't update everything. And then I always like to give out this website. It's buildingcenter.org. On there, you can actually type in any of the serial numbers for any HVAC system, hot water tank, anything like that. So while you're going through a house and you already know that's going to be probably a big question before you get to the inspection, this is 20 years old, this is 15, this is 2 years old. So different things that you can,
What's that website? That's great.
Buildingcenter.org.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's up, everyone? So when I'm not podcasting, I'm in real estate. I'm helping people buy homes. And when people buy homes, they got to get a home inspection. So I have someone I like and trust and use and refer to my clients. That's House Doctor Home Inspections. You can find them pretty much anywhere. They cover Connecticut, Mass, and Rhode Island. You can give them a call. Mike will always answer the phone. It's 401-597-0050. That's House Doctor Home Inspections. You can find them on Instagram, Facebook, website, whatever it is. Thanks, Mike, over at House Doctor Home Inspections. Back to the show. Yeah, and aside from items that are costly to repair, what are some safety things where you really your children bought a house, you would be like, hey, that is not safe. You have to fix this before you live in it. Is there any big safety things?
So for sure, structural wise, that's going to be a big safety thing. As we go through the home, we're doing a wood destroying insect inspection at the same time. So you'll see your inspector hitting wood with a screwdriver or some sort of. Should be, yeah.
Yeah.
But you do need a separate license to do that. So
maybe really? Okay.
If that inspector doesn't have that license, they can't
so it's
provide
a separate
that.
License? Or?
Yeah. So in Rhode Island, you need a pesticide license. So through the DEM.
Okay, that's cool.
In order to fill out the NPMA form that the FHA and VA loans, typically VA, but that they look for.
Okay.
To fill that out, you need that license.
All right. So do you have that?
Yes. All our inspectors at House Doctor.
Okay. Oh, excellent.
Yep.
That's cool.
But that's a big component of safety hazard is if you find a lot of structural damage or unsupported beams. In Rhode Island, Mass, we have a lot of older homes. People have done work time and time again on them. And not everybody's a contractor.
Right.
They think they are.
Right.
So looking at those areas and then different
what happens
things.
with that though? So say there's a beam that's not supported.
Yep.
That's structural. So what do you say? What do you do?
So everything with the home inspection report is a recommendation to the buyer.
Okay, it's just recommendations.
Yep. So we get that question a lot where, all right, so now I got this list of stuff. What do I do? And that's where coming in handy, working with a professional agent helps that buyer. Okay, these are our options. This is what we have to do. From that standpoint, I always let buyers know that's outside my profession. That's why you go to you guys.
Right.
But here's all the facts about the house, and then what you guys do from there. That's in your hands.
Okay, that's cool. Let me ask you this: how often does a home inspection cancel a deal? Has that ever happened? Where you're like, this is the inspection, and then it's boom.
I've had it probably 3 times in the middle of the inspection. Say, yeah, we're not going to finish the inspection because of X, Y, and Z. But we don't really see too much on the back end if it does go through or not. Sometimes we know because they book another inspection in 3 weeks.
Right.
And all right, they backed out of the last one. But we don't keep a record or a trace on okay, this person backed out.
Right.
So, but it happens for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
And just some, I know from a real estate agent point of view, a lot of buyers' concerns, right, is going to be safety concerns, costly concerns. And now I guess what are some costly concerns that you see where it's like, it might look like here's something on your report, it might not really be a safety concern, but like this is going to be costly. I'm guessing the major components of a home.
Yeah, stuff can fluctuate as far as water intrusion in a house. That can go from $1,000 to you get different companies in there to do a professional dry basement. If you have a stone foundation, that could be 10,000
Right.
plus, or something with fungus growth,
Right.
mold, stuff like that. There's really no guidelines as far as what to follow, what to
Right,
do.
right.
So again, that price can be thousands and thousands
Right.
when it
Right.
comes to that.
Yeah, it's open, yeah.
So we actually started doing mold testing at the beginning of this year, just to, most people nowadays, they're more conscious of it. They want to know more about the house that they're buying. So we started offering air quality sampling
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
for that
scary
business.
because I mean, you could go in a home that's beautiful and then no one's ever been in the attic, and I
Yep.
feel like that's always where it's hidden.
Yeah.
And it could just be it scares a lot of people off.
Yeah, it happens a
Yeah.
lot because in the attics, most people never go in there. It's stagnant, the air. If in Rhode Island you have a lot of older homes, back in the day there was no insulation in the attic. So they didn't need ventilation in there.
It's just vented.
Just vented, yeah.
Yeah.
But then with Rise, different companies want to make this living space more energy efficient.
Right.
So they
it's
add
sealed.
insulation.
Yep.
But now if they didn't add ventilation
Right.
and nobody's been there for a while, that's where you get the fungus growth and everything coming
Right.
in.
Yeah.
So we see that quite often.
Yeah, and the sellers are like, we'll go up there and scrub it, and the buyers are like, no, we want it professionally done, and that's kind of where the realtor has to battle through that, and the
Exactly.
buyers got to find a place where they're comfortable.
Mhm.
A random question: I just had a closing, and we were talking about a cesspool thing. Now, and the person in the room said you can't get a home inspection on a cesspool, but I think you can, right? There's a cesspool, and you can perform an inspection on a cesspool.
So they used to.
really?
And I'm sure there's other companies that still do it.
Yeah.
For us, we don't inspect
Okay.
them in Rhode Island. Well, we don't inspect them in general,
Right.
but in Rhode Island, because they have to be replaced within 12 months, to us, it's an
Right.
automatic fail.
Right.
I've heard of stories it's still passing Title V in Massachusetts, and Connecticut does still allow them.
Right.
So, like, you get,
Yeah.
but we just don't.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah, and I
touch
could be
cesspools.
wrong. I got to look into it after this because he's actually a lender, and he asked me the question. But I'm pretty positive a buyer can buy a house with a cesspool. Then, if they're getting an FHA loan, the lender needs to see the cesspool pass an inspection in order to get funds, even though they're going to replace it within a year. So I don't. He's like, no, you're wrong, Jay. So I need to look into that.
Yeah.
No, when you say cesspool, you talking about septic or no?
No,
Yeah.
so the cesspool is think of just a hole in the ground, typically stacked stone, brick. So everything that goes in that tank just seeps into the ground around it.
So it leaches out.
So a septic has a solid tank
Right.
and then goes to the leach field, just the liquids.
Right.
Solids stay in the tank and you get it
Okay.
pumped.
Right.
So that's where the state put in that law of in 12 months it needs to be replaced. So then everything's recorded with DEM and all that.
Okay, replaced by another cesspool or replaced with a septic?
Septic.
Oh.
Or connected to the street because a lot of
All right, so they're like being outmoded.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the thing some people they make just like a modification to a cesspool? What's that?
Yeah, so if you're installing a septic, so I did a flip with a contractor in Situate, and it was a pre-existing house. So then different guidelines that a new construction house would have to abide by, because it's pre-existing, they got some leeway. So typically your well would have to be 100 feet away from the leach field. But because this house was pre-existing and that 100 feet didn't exist, they allowed 50 feet. So like different things.
You gotta want 100 feet.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So that's why you do the water
Yeah.
quality test.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, it's important.
That's nice. That's good that you said that because another thing, like I'm looking. One of my main goals is to do a flip this year, and it's my first one.
Yep.
And I just don't really know if I want to get into a flip if it has a septic. I just feel like it's an extra layer of risk. Now, and typically with like an off market, I know you don't like to hear it, but
Yeah,
you just
you
go in,
wait.
no inspection, you
Yep.
buy it. So what's like the worst case scenarios? You need a new septic. Is that like the worst case scenario?
Worst case is new septic, new leach field, or
Yeah.
the leach field is where the money is.
Right.
But that's worst case.
Right.
So like factor in 30 grand just
Yeah.
in case.
Right. And you did a flip with this. It had a well, it had a septic.
Septic and well.
Yeah. How was that system?
It was a cesspool. So,
So you
we
knew
already
already.
knew it needed a
Yeah.
septic.
So would you? I mean, I'm just saying, if I'm gonna get into a house like that, just automatically put at least 30 grand aside. Assume it's worst case. I mean,
Yeah, because there's, depending on, like, if you're a 3-bed, 1-bath house,
Yeah.
ranch, and it's a small, like, that system could be 15 grand,
Right.
18 grand. Like,
Right.
but I don't know the numbers
Right, of
for the
course.
flips
Yeah,
and stuff like
yeah.
that to where
yeah.
I know 30 is a good solid number
Yeah.
at least. But we do have guys that do off-market properties that call us, and I just test the septic.
Only right. No houses. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we do that. I've probably already done a couple this year
Yeah.
already for guys, but
That's good.
And how scary can a well get, costly wise? Like, what's
Like-
worst case scenario with the well?
it can. I've seen people that think they had drilled wells, and it was a dug well in their garage.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, yeah, Situate and Gloucester, you see some crazy stuff out
Wow,
there. Like,
yeah.
people just do what they do. But,
Yeah.
And they're like creatures down there. You're like,
yeah,
"What?
like we couldn't find the well, nothing, and then they were like, "Oh, it's under this board in the
What?
garage."
That's weird.
But then it failed the well flow test that we performed to see if it's sufficient for daily use, and so you have to re-frack and drill. You have to re-drill a whole new well or you're taking down your whole garage. And
Right.
What does that cost? Who knows?
it really depends on the
Over or under 20 grand.
probably around.
Around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
Wow.
I've heard
I would
stories
have never
more
thought.
more
Yeah.
than,
Wow.
like I've heard both
Yeah,
the low and
yeah.
higher, but like it really depends on the drilling, everything,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
far, like, and some people can live in a house for years, no problem, 150-foot well, and then all of a sudden just run out.
Wow.
And they have to drill it to 400 feet.
Right.
Like
That's
I've
crazy.
heard stories of that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is that like, again, you're getting into a flip, an off market property, whatever, and there's a well. How often do you see that worst case scenario? Is it typically just a couple parts that need repair? Like,
So the
And-
flow test that we perform
Yeah.
is in Rhode Island. It's a 2-hour test. So over that 2 hours, we don't want to see. It typically runs about 600 gallons of water through the system. We don't want to see a drop in pressure or obviously run out of water. So that's the test.
right.
And again, in Rhode Island, there's no guidelines on what the test should be. In Mass, they have separate
Right.
guidelines and everything, a lot more strict when it comes to that. But we've been doing that for 20 years, and we talked to other well companies, everything. They're like, that's a good starting point. Like if you
Right.
don't pass that, then there's a problem. But that's a good daily use.
Yeah, last topic about well stuff. Getting radon tested in water. Can you talk about that and how the risks and mitigating that?
Yeah. So one of the options is testing for that radon in the water.
And that's not standard in a typical Rhode Island package, right?
So
Or
in
is
the
it?
Rhode Island package, it is.
It is, okay.
Like we kind of always try to not just push that one, but it gives you the full details of the water.
Right. What's going on, everyone? So you already know, right? If I'm not podcasting, I'm in real estate, and I need someone to help my clients get a mortgage, get a house, right? And I got John Dolbec. He's crushing it. He's got a team called a Modern Team over at Primary Residential Mortgage. So if you want to get pre-approved and buy your first home, reach out to John Dolbec and his team. Call or text. It's 401-321-4401. That's 401-321-4401. Back to the show.
And the mitigation system, so it's going to look at the radon in the water. Because you're grabbing water from the ground, and radon is the breakdown of uranium that is in the ground, that's how it seeps into the water. Then when it comes into the house, say you do come back with high levels of radon, think of pretty much a system that punches the air, so then it creates air bubbles and releases that radon before it goes throughout the rest of the house. So that's what that system does. A lot of times you'll see it in basements, a box maybe this big or so, and that pump will just continue running as you're calling for water from the well.
That alleviates it.
Yeah.
That's good.
And those obviously, those pumps don't last forever either. So like
Right.
that's another upkeep thing. But those systems can be $3,000 to $5,000 for those.
All right, let's see. The well is 20.
Yeah.
I think we're like
Yeah.
55 right now.
Yep.
So, Mike, how did you get into home inspections?
So
And how long have you been doing it?
So I've been doing it about just over 4 years now.
Okay.
And I didn't know about home inspections at all until I needed one myself.
Okay.
And when we were going through the inspection and everything, I'm like, oh wow, this could be like a good career.
Yeah.
That was in 2016. I bought my first house, and from that day I was like, oh, I think I could do this, and then just pushed it off. I'm like, no, just like doubled back, like I can't do that. And then it got to the point with my previous job where it's like, all right, I need to do something different. And I just called up the guy that used to own House Doctor. He always he did 4 or 5 inspections for me. Just called him up asking if he'd want to train me, and that's how I got into it.
And that's it? So there's no like Rhode Island test or something? It's
Oh,
just
no. There's, yeah.
After that, okay, there's a
So,
test.
believe it or not, licensing in Rhode Island just came out, I believe, 2019, 2020. Before that, you didn't need a license in Rhode Island at all. So, but I got started right after that time. So you have to do about 100, 150 inspections under a licensed home inspector. You have to take a national test, our standards of practice, that licensing procedures and stuff. So like we have to do continuing ed, like there's quite a bit of stuff that you have to do.
And let's pause there. So in 2019, you said in 2016 you got into it, right? So
2016 when I bought my first house and even just found out about.
So when did you
thinking
start working with Don?
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
So like, I guess how was that field when it wasn't like, so Rob, essentially, in 2019, a reputable person would do a home inspection. They don't have to be licensed, right?
Yeah.
So your uncle, right, an uncle,
Yep.
your uncle that knows really a lot about construction could show up with their buyer. It's their uncle that thinks they're Mr. Know-It-All and gives their nephew the home inspection report, and half of the stuff is like, it says it's mold. Well, dude, how do you know? You didn't test it. And they would just come up with this crazy report. But in 2019, now you have to have a licensed inspector.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, guidelines,
That's crazy.
everything like that from the state. And like Mass has had licensing for a while. And then Rhode Island pretty much adopted similar. But now there's guidelines, restrictions, what we can inspect, what we don't need to inspect. So now it's more of you know what to expect at a home inspection.
Right, okay. Is it standard? So in other words, it's standard if I hired you or if I hired Joe, it would be the same?
The bottom line, yes.
There's a bottom line, okay.
And then if you go above that and do X, Y, and Z, like the septic, doing that, home inspectors don't need to do. That's a separate license.
Right. You
Water
can
for all
poke at the
that.
wood because some
Exactly.
people can't poke at the wood because you have that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's how did you learn? Like I did some home inspections with you, and you have great. The whole company has like good coaching with the buyers, and there's some inspection companies that kind of scare buyers away. There's some that are they're in there in 20 minutes, and it's like, did you do anything?
Yeah.
You guys found the common ground.
Yep.
It's good.
I believe so. When I called Don up about training me, he knew I didn't have all the background of construction and heating and all that stuff, but he's like, you have a good personality. And I think that's where the trades, like, it's a very unique position with a home inspector because you're taking the trades, but you need customer service combined. And if you don't have both,
Right.
you're not going to last.
Yeah, and who in the trades have great customer service, you know?
Exactly.
That's
so
awesome.
and the way Don is, the way he taught me and the other inspector, Chris, and how we put a system together is staying consistent. As long as you're consistent, if you use us 5 times, you're going to get a similar product, like not fluctuating up and down and, oh my God, what am I going to say today?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So painting that picture for the
Right.
buyers.
What's the average cost of an inspection?
So it definitely just spiked up because of the electrical law in Rhode Island. But
Can you talk about that? So
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
happening with that?
Now, in that spike, is it because it's a liability thing now and with insurance, or?
not paying for the
Oh,
electrician
right.
to come
Gotcha,
out, separate
gotcha.
electrician.
Separate,
Yep.
okay.
But realistically, probably like without septic well, everything like that, about 500 to 600. Once you start adding septic well, water quality, mold testing,
Radon,
everything.
all that, yeah.
One more time, right?
Yeah, and we're paying for lab fees, stuff like that, sending different things to labs. But those can go as far as $1,500 to $2,000 for
Right,
a
right.
full package of all that stuff. Yep.
So why don't you touch on, you kind of started it, the electrical inspection piece of a home inspection
Yep.
at this point.
So in Rhode Island, last year they passed where a home inspector can no longer use any tools, testers, screwdrivers to take off the electrical panel.
So you can't touch it?
Can't touch it at all.
Okay.
And then last month they just tweaked that, so now we can use plug-in testers again,
Okay.
non-contact voltage testers, so at least if there's a wire running by, we can see if it's live or not.
Okay.
So that helps with maybe knob and tube a little.
Exactly.
You know if it, yeah.
Yep. So like when they first passed it, we could see knob and tube throughout the whole house, but we can't tell you if it's live or not.
Right.
And so at least they tweaked that. We're still the only state in the whole country that passed this.
Right.
There was
Yeah, we're good at that.
yeah, for sure.
Let's pass another law.
They didn't have any incidences. No home inspector died. It was just something that they've been trying to pass the last couple of years. But it really ultimately it hurts the buyer the most because it's more money out of their pocket.
So now they have to hire an electrician to come in and
Yep.
inspect the panel?
Exactly.
And that's the norm? Is that what people are doing?
So a month and a half before this law went into effect, I trained a master electrician to inspect just like a home inspector would. Here's our standards of practice, what we look for, this is how we do it. So then when this law went into effect, he did the same job a home inspector would be, but he's a master electrician and he would just do the electrical. So we take care of the scheduling, get the electrician there, provide the reports, everything. So that's the way we
So
did
you're
it.
kind of subcontracting that out?
Yeah.
It's still a
Yep.
good service for the...
Exactly.
Yeah, for the buyer.
So they still make one phone call and they can get everything
Right.
That's
handled.
awesome. That's really cool.
Right, yeah, but not every inspector's doing that. So typically, again, buyers out there, they get a house, electrical's a big component, and you're going to get there and you're going to ask your inspector, oh, how's the panel look, how's the electrical look? If you got that question, can you comment?
So
How's the electrical look? Could you answer that, or?
So we would answer in a way of what we visually can see
Yeah,
is this X, Y, and Z, but there's still another component behind this panel cover that
you can't
we
touch.
don't know. So that's and there can be a lot of safety hazards
Right,
in there. Every home inspector can tell you stories of
Right.
taking that panel cover off, and what's behind
Right.
it. So
Right, even my personal home, I just sold my personal home 3 months ago. They took my panel off, and there was water everywhere in the panel.
Yep.
Safety concern.
Yep.
But now you just don't. If you have an inspector that doesn't have the connection like you made, they wouldn't have known that.
No.
But
We've since this went into effect, about 85% of our inspections are booking
They're
the
booked,
electrician
yeah,
with us.
yeah.
It's smart.
So
how has that been? Easy to do, or
it's
same day?
so for the most part, we're trying. Our goal is so that
Right.
it's the same exact time as the home inspection.
Right.
It's not always going to work out that way.
Right.
But we've booked our electrician. He's been busy.
As
That's
it
good.
Yeah.
good.
Makes
But
me happy.
we want to go in there just like a home inspector would. He talks just like how we do,
Yeah.
and here are the facts.
Right, that's good.
And there's an additional cost though now, right?
That's an extra $300 just for him.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's tough because I'm sure there's guys out there that do for $100, $150.
Right.
But they can also work on the property. So, say I do it for $100.
Oh, they can.
They can.
Yeah.
There's nothing saying they can't right
Right.
now.
So
Home
that's-
inspectors, I can't work on that property for 12 months after inspecting it, because then it's not like here's all the problems, here's the price to fix them all.
Oh.
So I'm not
Right.
trying to find problems to benefit
So
myself.
that's
Right,
part of
right.
the law that regulates you? Or what?
For home inspectors,
Yeah.
yes.
Wow.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things like that, right? You have a big liability as an inspector.
Yeah, it's it can
Yeah.
be overwhelming at
Yeah.
times.
Do you have like a malpractice?
So
insurance?
we have errors and omissions. So
Oh,
We
same
do,
as us.
yeah.
yeah.
So like you guys can't. You're not even supposed to like refer people out, right?
It
Or
I don't
know.
to be honest, 100% there. So our licensing like standard.
Yeah.
They have programs of like say with like Brinks Home Security.
Yeah.
Where we can be affiliates.
Right.
So like that's our licensing organization
Right,
that we're
right.
a part of. So like if they
Interesting.
do it,
Right.
like
Yeah.
what's the right or wrong? So ultimately, like you guys, you're trying to do the best job for your client.
Right.
So that's ultimately our goal as well,
Mhm.
doing the best possible job, providing the best service, A to Z.
Mhm. So what's your flow like? So what should a buyer expect? First time home buyer, it's home inspection day. They show up and they're there. What should they expect? Should they walk with the inspector?
Yep.
What should they do? What's going on, everyone? So when I'm not podcasting, I'm in real estate, and there's a lot of times where I need to refer out an excavator, someone to do clean outs, gravel, grading, digging, stuff like that, junk removal. So if any of you ever need any of that type of work taken care of, reach out to Tom at Legacy Excavating at 401-227-5399. Reach out to Tom. He'll take care of you. Back to the show.
Yeah. So we always advise, if possible, to be on site at the home the day of the inspection.
I think that's important.
For sure. It's a lot easier. You get a 100-page document with a bunch of pictures, you're gonna feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And a lot of it's not all just repair stuff. It's maintenance stuff. This is where the shutoff is. This is where the gas meter is. Whatever. But when you're on site, we typically, with how Stockton, we start on the outside of the house and then go from the basement, work our way up. And I always tell people, I'm here to work for you today. You have questions, concerns, anything, you ask away. No matter where we are, follow me around. Cool. And that's where you have to be personable and knowledgeable.
Right. You can't be like, get away from me.
Yeah. And it's having a system. That's where, like, Don preached that. He goes, if you continue doing the same thing, it'll be less likely that you miss something.
Right.
Because you want to be personal, but you also want to do your job.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's I always tell people, follow me around, but I'm like, don't stress out. Don't feel I'm gonna start naming things. It's gonna be a lot of info, short period of time, but everything will be on that report. We'll have pictures, description.
Yeah. And what's like, you kind of set a number of 50 pages. So, I mean, a lot of buyers get stressed out. I think like if I was not in real estate and I had a home inspection, I would think, man, the report's going to be like 3 to 5 pages. They're not. They're much more than that. So, like, what's like an average kind of like, you're going to get a report, whether it's new construction or a terrible home, you're going to at least get maybe 20 pages.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, just with disclosures, what the inspector is looking for in each section. It's broken down, electrical, plumbing, heating, and within that section, it tells you what we're even inspecting, what we're looking at. So even if we don't find anything, we're telling you what we're looking at or what we can't see. So there's a lot of disclaimers and disclosures in there. So it's always going to be at least 20 pages, like at least.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess what are some horror stories from dealing with tenants or terrible homes? Have you ever told the buyer? I'm sure you can't, but maybe hinted toward like, this is no, like this is
so we can't say that.
Yeah.
When that does happen, like there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Your tonality changes a little bit. Like you're not like we're laughing and everything, but ultimately it's their end game and what makes sense for them. And we get the question a lot, like, should I buy this house?
I'm sure you do. You think it's a good home?
Yeah, and I always tell people, and you guys know, real estate is about, do the numbers make sense? Like, something that makes sense for you may not make sense for me, so that's not my position to say yes or no.
Right.
And once I explain it that way, like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the horror stories, tenants are the crazy.
The worst,
like, I want to get into multifamilies, and then I do an inspection in a multifamily, I'm like, like, you see some crazy stuff. One that blew me away is I was just on my own doing inspections. It was a Saturday afternoon, 3-family, either Pawtucket or Providence, and grown man just sleeping in his bed while I'm inspecting the unit.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, another man's in your bed, you're like inspecting. Like, get up.
Yeah, they hate that. But
it's crazy thing. But I remember I popped my head in an attic, and you just saw a bird's nest from the floor joist to the top rafters.
Wow.
Bird's nest. Shine my light. I can't go in there. It's crazy. So you see some crazy stuff like that, and then in crawl spaces.
Right.
It more or less your mind playing tricks on you.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have to go down into the crawl?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you do.
Yep. Oh, we crawl as much as we can get to.
Really?
Yep.
Oh.
So
How'd you go up on the roof also?
So depends on the style of the roof. So like one level ranch, raised ranch, we're getting up there.
Okay.
By our standards, we don't need to.
All right.
No inspector needs to get on the roof. Most capes, when you have a steeper pitch, stuff like that, we use binoculars. Then we're in the process of getting like a drone license.
Nice.
That's typically like in Providence, you have a 3-family on the side of a 3-family on the side of a 3-family, and you can't see the roof. Right. That's when that comes in handy big time.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
And can you tell the age? Because that's always a question.
Yeah. For the most part, obviously it's ballpark. We put estimated.
Right.
But yeah, depending on the style of the roof, what type of material it is, we always give an estimate of the age of the roof.
Right, because that's always a question. How old is the roof?
Yep, exactly.
Like, I have no idea.
Yep.
Now, how many houses do you inspect in, like, say, an average week?
Typically between 20 and 40.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So
All year.
averaged out.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah. Yep.
That's good.
That's awesome.
a good number,
It's
yeah.
We're looking to bring on more inspectors, grow the right way. We've been
Right.
building the solid foundation. Don's built incredible word of mouth business.
So you'll teach them?
100%.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
We want to do both. We want to have a system where other inspectors that are already licensed and everything come in, and we're going to hold them to the same high standard that our business is used to,
Right.
and then put together a training system for people like how I didn't have the background in it, but training the right people and be able to grow that business throughout Mass more, Connecticut more,
Wow.
and really start growing.
Right.
So you're licensed in 3 states?
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah, I remember, let's say 2020 maybe. So I started real estate in 2018. There was that 6-month period when real estate was just wanted more, just wasn't there. I was still new. I reached out to some inspectors, like, hey, are you guys hiring? Because I always did enjoy going on the inspection.
Yep.
It's cool. I guess another question is for you is some lead stuff, right? Lead is important. Can you ever really get rid of lead paint if the home was built prior to 1978?
So we don't test or do anything with lead.
Okay.
So I don't want to talk on it.
Okay,
'cause
that's fine.
I'm not.
Yeah.
It's not something I do every day.
Yeah, right.
So like we mentioned like obviously the year stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. But with all the laws, everything they are enforcing
Right.
stronger now. So
Yeah. How about asbestos and all that?
So with similar to like the mold situation
Yeah.
where home inspectors shouldn't say mold unless you tested it.
Right.
So we say fungus growth because they incorporate.
Oh, is that
everything.
the same thing with
So
asbestos?
Asbestos is asbestos-like material.
Oh,
Right,
wow.
the tiles in the basement.
The
or
distribution pipes and the old steam
Yeah.
heat. So
Oh, I didn't know you guys couldn't. There was a test to confirm that. I thought it was very hot.
Yep.
Oh wow, I
it's
didn't know
different
that.
type of insulation in the attic, vermiculite insulation.
Oh, wow.
So there's different areas where on the report you'll see asbestos-like
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
because we're not testing it.
Yeah. And then obviously, if the buyer wanted it tested, they could.
100%.
Right, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So prior to you getting into home inspections, you were not involved in real estate or
Not in real estate.
construction?
Construction, worked with multiple contractors, and then worked with a commercial company. They did all janitorial for hospitals, schools, systems.
Yep.
So did a lot of machine cleaning systems and stuff like that for them. And then my wife's family, they own a financial brokerage. So I became a financial advisor at like 2021.
Wow.
So that's actually how I built the relationship with the previous owner of House Doctor. He became one of my clients. I met with another inspector that used to work for House Doctor. So I saw the business aspect of it, and I'm like, oh wow, this makes a good business. I can see
Yeah,
how
that's
we
cool.
can
That's
grow
really
this.
cool.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a lot of. I feel like there is a lot of growth. Like when I go to, I've seen you at some networking events, but if you go to a networking event in the real estate space, it's lenders, 1 million realtors just drinking, and there's no home inspectors.
Yep.
So it's such a good space to, and then like I've never ever, it could be maybe a tip for you. I've never had a home inspector ever ask me to go for coffee ever. Maybe if you were like I hear
Just shots,
top
coffee.
200 realtors in state, hit them up, coffee,
Yep.
anyone?
So that's in the works
Yeah.
as far as, because we're lucky enough to have the influx of inspections.
Yeah.
We have 3 inspectors where our schedules are pretty packed. So the goal is as we bring on inspectors, my position will go from
Gotcha.
actually doing inspections to curating relationships, building
Mhm,
relationships
that's good.
to continue that business flowing. So putting together that system, that's for sure
That's
in the
cool.
works.
Yeah.
So at this moment, how do you get leads? They just
So-
come to you, or like all inbound, or
For the most part, between
I know you advertise with us. That must be
yeah, oh, that's rolling
Yeah.
in, rolling. The
Oh man.
previous House Doctor's been around for 20 years.
Okay.
So just the
Just
word of
like a
mouth,
good
people,
name.
agents that have used House Doctor out of habit, like, you know, that we're creatures of habit. So people picking up the phone, calling, texting, whatever. That aspect of it, because they built a great foundation with word of mouth. Providing a great service, great product, people are going to come back.
That's good.
So doing
That's
that, and then now we're branching out with the social media. really doubling down on Instagram, Facebook, Google ads, stuff like that.
That's cool.
Started doing professional videos. So really trying to branch out there to create that brand of house doctor and intrigue people to want to use us, and people come work with us too.
And not just back to the stories. We're not gonna. We made a comment about tenants, but listing agents are probably worse.
I don't touch that subject.
Yeah, no,
because they can still use us when they have a buy.
Exactly. Cool.
Yep.
So want to hop into our last 3 questions?
Sure.
Or anything?
All right, best cup of coffee in Rhode Island as far as you're concerned.
Oh,
Other than you can't see your wife's. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say Revive in North Smithfield.
Revive, do we know that?
North
where-
Smith, is that where the trap is? But right up, no, that's Josephina's, I think it's called.
You know Pacheco Park?
No.
North Smithfield?
No.
You
No?
should.
No.
Well,
I should.
your
It's right
grandfather
down
built
there.
it.
Yeah.
Did he know?
No, dude.
Where the
What?
post office is in Slatersville.
All right.
It's over there.
Okay, Revive, all right.
Yep.
That's cool.
What about restaurant Rhode Island?
Ooh. That's tough. So I was never a food critic until I married an Italian.
Oh.
And now I like critique food.
Really?
Like,
Yeah.
I would have to like. I'll just say my mother-in-law's.
There you go. Oh, God. Yeah.
All right. Okay, last question. This is hypothetical, okay? So
Yep.
suspend reality. You have a free Saturday. How do you spend it?
No responsibilities.
No responsibilities.
I would have to say with my wife and my daughter.
Come on, you're going to get the
Like-
gym in there. I see you on social media.
The gym before they even get up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then probably grabbing a coffee, my wife, daughter going for a ride down by the
Yeah.
beach or something.
Cool.
Nice, very good.
That would while talking about business.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, does she help out with?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So with Don and his wife, they work with us, me and my wife, and then our other inspector. But both wives do the phones, scheduling.
Oh, nice.
And my wife went to school for marketing and social media
Oh,
and stuff,
that's
so she's the one that's managing that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool, guys. So this is Mike at House Doctor. If anyone needs a home inspection, reach out to Mike. All right, guys. Thank you.